All right, everybody. Welcome back to Field Pass Podcast. This is your host, Zach Forsyth, here with Braden McConnell here to discuss this upcoming week of NFL football. This past weekend was stroudy with the chance of rain, but that's not what we're going to talk about here today, at least just yet. Right now, we're going to start off with discussing the most dominant division in the entirety of the NFL, and that would be that of the AFC North, with all current teams, well, not all current teams, all teams within the AFC North currently uh, with standing to be within the NFL playoffs. Um, that includes the Ravens, Steelers, Browns, and Bengals, obviously. Um, but Brain, is this something that you would have expected halfway through the season?
Um, yes. I didn't think the Steelers would be here. I thought the Browns and Bengals would be in this picture, and so would the Ravens. I mean, it's been like this the past couple years where this division has just been really competitive. It's just crazy because the Bengals are on a four-game winning streak and are still at the bottom of the division. Like that's just how it is. And I mean, I think they still have to play each other a bunch. I think the Steelers have every team's played two division games. So each team has to play two more, which could either be two wins or two losses. So I think at least two of these are three teams in the AFC North will make the playoffs this year, with one automatically and two in the wild card. I do not think all four though. And
Mhm.
I think the one going to be left out is Pittsburgh, but I do think two AFC North teams make the wild card this year.
Yeah, I agree. I think that we were really kind of fools for not expecting the Steelers to at least be in the conversation. I mean, not fools in the sense that they, I mean, the Steelers always find a way to be winners. They have that vampire magic running through their blood. But did it necessarily mean that they were going to be 5-3 halfway through the season? I don't think we would have faulted ourselves for thinking that back then in the day, and certainly wouldn't uh, project them to be where they're at right now at the start of the season. But maybe that's just wishful thinking on my end. Um, on my end, I also believe that it would be the Browns and the Bengals, which is kind of interesting considering that we are actually at the bottom of the division, although the the bottom three teams have a tie in terms of their schedule, or in terms of their win loss ratio. I was kind of expecting that the Ravens injury situation probably would catch up to them by this point in the season, but that really hasn't happened yet. And so far, the Ravens have been dominant, and they were my best team in the NFL last week. And over the course of this weekend, with their win over the Seahawks, it really just solidified the idea that they really are the top dogs right now. Um, but as as fans within this division, wouldn't you say it's kind of encouraging to kind of be in the hardest division in the sense like when you get out of this spot, it does feel like a pretty amazing accomplishment.
Yeah, I mean, and it prepares your teams for the playoffs too.
Right.
Because I mean, you're
Yeah.
not like most teams have cupcakes in their division. We don't. Every game's going to be hard. Um, the one thing I would like to point out is the Ravens need to watch this Lamar situation. We talked about it last week. We need to keep Lamar healthy, and it looked like he tweaked his ankle last week. It doesn't look like it'll like affect any of his playing time or anything, but that's just something they need to watch out and see how healthy he can be.
Yeah, that sort of in any injury concern with Lamar is something that you got to take into account. Due to the way that he plays, he's just naturally going to take those hits. So any sort of exposure or injury based on his play style can get exacerbated on any given Sunday. So it's really important that they protect Lamar, and like as Lamar is, even as an AFC North fan, uh, Lamar is like my favorite quarterback in the league. So no one wants to see him go down or not be able to play to the level that he can, because when he plays, it is absolutely electric. So I hope for the Ravens' sake that they do a good job of at least maybe reining him in as it relates to rushing, and kind of are able to use Zay Flowers and some of those other receivers that they have on the roster to get the ball out quicker, so he's not taking those crazy hits. But yeah, it's definitely something to consider going forward for the Ravens, because if Lamar goes down, we've already seen what that means for that team. Well, that's enough said about them. With that in mind, let's go over to one of the more interesting games of this week. We had a great week of football. Just combined with that Eagles Cowboys game, which kind of went the way that we expected. Uh, we were really able to see, not that we expected this game to be bad by any means stretch of the imagination. We both Brandon and I recognized that this was a a tough defense up against a very accomplished and young Houston offense. But I think anyone would be surprised with how dominant CJ Stroud looked this weekend against that aforementioned strong defense. CJ Stroud threw for over 400 yards on this team. Now, in the first half, after watching it, there were some instances in which he probably could have gotten even more. There were some issues with like overthrowing, but other than that, like once the second quarter was over, it was on, and the ball was like practically like zipping and teleporting into the hands of his receivers. Like what we could possibly be looking at right now is the perfect Ohio State quarterback that you can create. Like when you're creating a system in which you have to rely on, or not that you have to rely necessarily, but you're relying on a very strong, competent offensive line, and you have incredible receivers. The one thing that you are responsible for is accuracy and being able to get rid of the ball. Um, CJ Stroud is capable of doing both of those things. In this game, he looked incredibly accurate, other than some overthrows, which certainly can be remedied over the course of his season, over the course of his career. But he was also incredible at getting rid of the ball. There were a number of occasions where he had the just intellectual capability to just dump it off when he knew, or dump it off or throw it away when he knew he was beat. And others where he was just able to miraculously, like basically on his back foot, just chuck it almost like a baseball over to uh, like a wide receiver in the flat. So I'm really impressed with CJ, and I think like you could make a case that CJ Stroud has the foundation, or at least the skills that he's shown, is the example of what the perfect Ohio State quarterback could be given the scheme that the offense runs
You talking
at
about
Ohio
Ohio
State.
State or Houston?
Ohio State, like what I'm saying is CJ Stroud is the is the best quarterback that Ohio State could produce
Yeah,
based on the way that they play.
I mean, he's the clear offensive rookie of the year so far, and barring any injuries, he's gonna be, unless if he decides to just stop playing. But it doesn't look like that. I mean, what he threw for 400 yards. Was it four touchdowns?
Yeah,
Five
I think it was
touchdowns.
around
It
that
was
five
five
touchdowns.
touchdowns.
Yeah.
Because one to Noah Brown, one to Schultz, two to Tank Dell, one to Nico. But like he's been outstanding. I mean, I don't have we really seen him struggle passing wise? I mean, Houston's obviously struggled as a team as a whole, but like he's really been putting up numbers. And the one thing he hasn't done much is he hasn't turned the ball over. He only has one interception on the year. So and with all these rookie quarterbacks lately, you've seen this interception to touchdown ratio be more towards interceptions than touchdown. We I can't remember the last time where we had a rookie QB like this that was like 14-1. It was probably like Joe Burrow or something, probably the last one. But I don't even think he was doing this good. But yeah, he needs to continue to keep balling, keep doing what he's doing, and if he and then the only thing he can do from here is improve, I think. And
Yeah, that would be crazy if that's all he did. Yeah, if he if all he did was get better after 400 yards, that would be awesome.
well, yeah, I mean, this is just the start of his career. This is like
Right.
he
Yeah.
he could be I don't know if he stays in Houston, but like he could be a very good air raid QB where he throws for a bunch. One thing that we saw in the Georgia game last year is his feet, and I'm interested to see if Houston can like put that in there game plan at all because I mean, he never really did it until that Georgia game. He was running all over the place and he was doing really well at it, and it was frustrating for me watching it, exciting for you. But it's just CJ Stroud, I admit at the beginning of this year I didn't know what to think of him. I didn't think he would do that good, but he's proved me wrong. I mean, he already has 2,200 yards, so in 8 games. And yeah, for a rookie this as well, and I think it's a clear runaway for offensive rookie of the year. Because I mean, you could say Puka, but like he's fallen down since Cooper Kupp came back. So I think it's clear CJ.
Yeah, I think with Puka Nacua, like it's not even just with Cup coming back. I think it's also the quarterback play has really bottlenecked
Yeah.
his chances as well, because with Stafford facing injuries that he's facing, there really isn't anyone who's going to help get him the ball. I mean, they brought on Carson Wentz, but we don't even really know what that's going to look like.
Yeah, we don't
Like
even know if
we
he's
don't
going
we
to
don't
play or
even
not.
know what that quarterback room is going to look like. So I think going forward, if you got to put your money on anyone halfway through the season, I would not put my life on CJ, but like I would get pretty close. I would probably put like an arm or something. Um,
One
what were you saying?
one thing I'd like to point out, I was looking at their schedule. He's going up against some legit defenses in these next couple weeks. He goes, Bengals have a good secondary at least. That's much out. He's going against the Jaguars. That's probably middle. Then he goes against Jets, which obviously is a great defense, and then he goes against the Browns and the Titans twice, which I'm
Titans
not.
twice would be hard.
Yeah, so like those are like legit defenses, and if he can do that against them, I think it's real clear. But like that's one thing we gotta look out for is how he's going against legit defenses. I mean, because we saw him tear up the Steelers defense. So, and we saw him tear up this Bucks defense. So we're just gonna have to keep an eye out, and we need to evaluate based on how he's playing, not based on how his team's playing. Because I mean, we could see a loss, be like, oh, CJ must not play well, but they easily could have lost this game to the Buccaneers, and he still would have thrown 400 yards. So I would just keep an eye. He's something to watch, CJ Stroud.
Yeah, I think that going forward, these games are going to be close, and I don't think it's necessarily going to be that CJ's play is going to kind of aid in that closeness. I think it's definitely going to be the defense is kind of letting them down. It's not that the Texans have an abysmal defense by any stretch of the imagination, but watching that Buccaneers game, Baker was making some pretty amazing throws to Mike Evans, and they really couldn't do anything about it on a number of occasions.
Mm.
Evans didn't have an amazing game, but there were a couple of crazy catches where he had 4 receptions, 87 yards, which is not an amazing game, but kind of giving up those big plays is concerning, especially when you're going up against people like the Bengals, who are really able to capitalize on that. But when you look at these other teams, like big plays are really in question. Maybe the defense could keep them in. The one concern that you would maybe have is uh, you have the Cardinals, who are probably going to have Kyler back by this point, which is the 19th of November, so not this week, but the next. And then you have Trevor Lawrence, who is a concern when you have Christian Kirk and Calvin Ridley on that offense. And then I think really the Browns will have their offense figured out by the 24th. If barring any Deshaun injuries, I think that the Browns should have like not an explosive offense, but I think that if the Browns haven't figured it out by this time in the year, so we're talking 7 weeks from now, there are going to be other issues with the Browns, other than their offense being mid. So I think that really those 3 games are of concern, but everyone else should be manageable. Everyone, unless Will Levis starts to really hone in on that deep ball, which he is already shown competency at, I think that they should be okay, and they could potentially be. Uh, we should probably entertain the conversation about them being divisional winners. Um, so yeah, I think that's all we can say about him. It's really exciting to see a quarterback who has been able to prove a lot of people wrong, especially with that stupid cognition test stuff coming out prior, which kind of didn't tank his draft stock because he went second, but it was that was irritating. And then I was also wrong about CJ Stroud. I thought Bryce Young's skill set would transfer a little bit easier into the or like a little bit it would be an easier transfer to the NFL than CJ's, considering the offense that he was kind of a part of. And I was pleasantly surprised, and I was happy to be wrong. So with that being said, another quarterback that we're incredibly happy to see find a place and really just put up just some magical stats using some incredible game time improvisation is Josh Dobbs over in Minnesota. This win against the Falcons this particular weekend was incredibly impressive from a quarterback standpoint. We're talking a quarterback who was traded that week, didn't know the snap count for or the candor for when they're hiking the ball, and then also in a number of cases didn't even know the name of his teammates. So when
Well,
you have
he
a
he
yeah,
didn't
sorry.
even practice either. Like he
Yeah,
literally played 0 snaps as a Minnesota Viking before Sunday.
yeah. So when you're coming in after the injury to it was Jaren Hall, the concussion, this guy threw 20 for 30, 158 yards and 2 touchdowns against the Falcons to lead them to a win. And on a number of occasions, really put it on his back because, I mean, you're down Justin Jefferson, you're down considerable personnel within your defensive room, and really he was able to lean on himself. He was the rushing leader for 7 carries with 66 yards and a touchdown, um, and really just put the team on his back. And like this could be the inspiring, because that was, I guess, that was the inspiring story of the week.
Yeah, there's 2 points for me. This Josh Jobs was really impressive. I mean, playing 0 snaps, 20 for 30, 158 yards, 2 touchdowns, 0 interceptions. And he also had 66 rushing yards and another touchdown. That's really impressive for playing 0 snaps. And it kind of reminds me of Baker on the Rams last year, where he just came in and kind of carried his team to a win. We saw it didn't turn out the greatest after that, but I mean, this is very like because I mean they both led drives at the end of the game to win it. I mean, at the end he led a 11 play 75 yard 11 play 75-yard touchdown drive in a minute and 46 seconds.
Yeah, that's
They
crazy.
ran
That's
11
actually
plays in a minute and 46 seconds. And I mean, like he impressed me on how well he did. But my other point is, man, I feel bad for Jaren Hall because
yeah, man.
he played one drive, was 5 for 6, 78 yards, which is really good for one drive, and he got hurt, or he played 2 drives. Sorry, he got hurt on at the 1 yard line trying to reach for the end zone, which sucks. And it looks like he lost his spot, which is kind of frustrating looking at from his perspective. But I mean, you got to do at the end of the day, you got to give Josh Dobbs credit for stepping up and making and using his time wisely, I guess, making plays.
Yeah,
But yeah, it's just interesting. It's interesting to see like how this progresses because I could easily see Josh Dobbs struggling and then putting Hall right back in. You never really know.
I think this is Josh Dobbs' job to lose, though. Like I think
Yeah,
that that was the case. That was the case going into the week. That's why you traded for him. And the one thing that if you're Jaren Hall, what you wanted to do is put something nice on film, like and really really just get something that like they can look forward to keeping you on. I think he was a 5th round rookie this year. So it's like when you're drafted that low, you really just want something that you can show that hey, I have something to bring to the table, and maybe he does. And it's unfortunate that this game just wasn't the one that he was able to show that. Um, so you got to hope for another opportunity for him, just because if I mean playing that well or playing that well in a game against like a not a like incompetent defense
yeah.
by any means is something to be proud of. It's just when you're that young and new to the league, sometimes you take hits like that. We kind of saw that with Anthony Richardson kind of taking unnecessary hits early into his career with that concussion, and then Trevor Lawrence kind of reminding him like, "Hey, dude, you don't have to take all these hits. Like, you can protect yourself." Hopefully, that this is something that he's just able to learn from and take the skills that he already has, and maybe find a place where he can call home. Well, for the long term. All right. We also had a very interesting week as it relates to the Raiders, with the firing of Josh McDaniels, which seems to have just been his reign in the Raiders just seemed to be like a miasma hovering over the franchise, with everyone seeming to hate Josh McDaniels. Like, you see the Raiders after their win over the Giants smoking cigars, referencing how they had this meeting where they essentially aired out all their grievances with the franchise. And then the current coach essentially reminding the team of the heart and the drive that the Giants possessed when they beat the New York Patriots in the Super Bowl. And then Josh McDaniels essentially getting up in his face and saying, "Don't you ever talk about the Patriots like that," just kind of exposing like insecurity. And I guess it captures the the culture that was created when you have a head coach like that within Vegas. But I mean, this possibly just could be something that follows Josh McDaniels. We've seen head coach opportunities where he's had before sort of spiral out of control as well. So what all that to say is Josh McDaniels was the first coach fired, and we've seen the Raiders with a pretty dominant win over the Giants. Um, with that question, I want to talk to you. I want to pose you this question, Brandon. Who do you think could be the next coach gone? Um, and this is kind of like you don't have to answer this per se, but like, with that coach being gone, do you think that that team would find an immediate bounce back like the Raiders have in this game?
Yeah, this when I was looking, I it really came down to three coaches for me, and I'm gonna give you kind of miniature version for each. I think Mike Vrabel could very easily be on his way out in Tennessee, just because how they've played the past couple years. I mean, they've been like sub 500, and last year they missed the playoffs, and it's not looking the greatest this year. I could see him being on the way out. Um, the next one for me is Ron Rivera. That's been rumored for weeks. It's nothing's really like come of it, but it's just been rumored, and if they continue to decline, I could see that one as well. And then the other one for me, which I think would be way too quick of a trigger, is Matt LaFleur at Green Bay. Because I mean, I could see why he could get fired, but I don't think it. I think it's too early. But like those are the other than the obvious, like Brandon Staley for the Chargers, which I mean he could be fired any day now, really, at this rate. But those were like the three other candidates that like can we, and there's other ones out there, but I feel like those are the three like that could very easily happen, and like those are probably three of the most interesting ones as well.
Yeah, I think that. See, I don't know if I agree with Vrabel. I think that Vrabel has been a pretty consistent coach as it relates to the way that Tennessee has played. Um, I think that many of the struggles that have come out of the team kind of related to that GM, their GM that they were able to get rid of, especially in the shadow of that AJ Brown trade, which just looks worse every single day when you look at it. Especially with AJ Brown being a top 1 or 2 receiver in the league, depending on how you look at it. But in terms of next coach gone, I really do think that it's Staley. Like, I think that if you lost to the Jets in prime time, you should have done it. Like, I think that as it relates to the franchise as a whole, I think you should have gotten rid of him already. And I think
Yeah,
every second that he is on that team, it's worse for the Chargers. And I think that if you were to get rid of him, you may see a rebound in the way that the team performs, because they have the talent there. It's not like this team stinks, or at least not that they have the personnel. Would you agree?
yeah, they should be a lot better than they are. I mean, they have probably back-to-back worst chokes in history in back-to-back seasons with the whole we tie and we're in, and then he calls a timeout and Raiders kick a field goal. And then last year, obviously the 27-0 in Jacksonville. Like those are probably back-to-back, like back-to-back seasons. That's probably one of the worst of all time. But I mean, and that should be enough to, I mean, with that team, man, like that offense, and they should have a good defense, like because they got Derwin, they got Khalil Mack, they got Joey Bosa, they got a lot of people on that defense, and I think they should be a lot better than they are.
I I just think that this team really, when you have Justin Herbert at quarterback, who has not looked very good recently, like is when you have Justin Herbert not looking in the greatest. I mean, you can levy concerns at Justin Herbert for that loss. Like I still think you can. Like even as like the Justin Herbert truther that I believe I am, I think that not that like it's none of this is his fault, but I think most of it falls down to Brandon Staley. It's just an incredible mismanagement of this team, and I really think that there are better options out there. And I think another coach that we may be talking about, or we should, uh, I think the conversation needs to happen is Belichick. And I know that news came out that he had signed a multi-year extension, but we don't know exactly what that is. We don't know how long that is. And I think it was intentionally left vague because I think that there's a lot of like power struggle. There's a huge power struggle going on in New England right now as it relates to the franchise as a whole. I think Kraft is irritated with the performance of the team. He's certainly not he's certainly not a fan of failure after you have that history of the crazy dynasty that the Patriots had. And I think Belichick is kind of holding them in the past. I mean, when you keep putting Mac Jones out on the field, despite the mistakes that he made or that he continues to make, and then with some of the personnel decisions he's made, I think that Belichick really could be gone within this season or the next. Uh, with even with that extension, like it's possible that he's no longer with the Patriots. Um, I just really do think that internally there's unhappiness with the way that the team has performed. Obviously, I mean they're looking at the Caleb Williams sweepstakes right now at 2-7, and despite the level of esteem that he holds within the football community as a whole, it, at some point the Patriots have to start producing, and they're not winning games. And so I think that that's something that we should consider uh, going forward as a potentially open spot.
Yeah, I mean, it could very easily happen, and it's been rumored, but I don't know if the they have the balls to make that decision.
It would be a pretty ballsy decision. I mean, that's
Yeah.
that's
If it doesn't work out, it'll go down as like historically as a like just bad decision.
mhm. All right, this is going to lead us to our sort of longer conversation about just the league at large. We're halfway through the season now. Um, so we kind of have an idea of who really is standing at the top of their division. We have the Jaguars leading the AFC South, the Ravens of the AFC North, Chiefs of the AFC West, and the Dolphins of the AFC East. Eagles in the NFC East, Niners in the NFC West, Lions in the NFC North, and a very close, uh, we're very close and marginal lead in the NFC South with the Saints. So right now, Brady and I are going to talk about just our wild predictions and who we think going forward is going to we should consider like still alive and still within the runnings. So Brandon, why don't you start us off with the NFC?
For NFC, yeah, I looked at the standings and the four divisional leaders. I just assumed they'd stay there and made the playoffs. There's five teams that are contenders right now for me. Um, which is Cowboys, which I think is pretty much gonna set in stone. They're just in a behind the Eagles, who, in my opinion, are the best team in the NFL. Seahawks, who are in a similar situation, which that can easily flip-flop with the 49ers, where the Seahawks won the division and then the 49ers make the wild card. The Falcons as well is in that situation where they could flip-flop with the Saints because they still play each other and they both have similar schedules. And then two that like I can see happening, but they're still contenders for now, and that's the Vikings and Commanders. Vikings obviously are now 5-4. They they did lose their starting quarterback with Kirk Cousins, but Justin Jefferson's going to come back at some point, and with all that, they still have enough weapons to where they can win. I'm not sure if they get it done and sneak in the wild card, but there's you still got to keep them as contenders now just because of that firepower that they have. And then Commanders, I feel like are just always in the playoff picture every year, no matter how good or bad they are. I know they just traded away their whole defensive line, but you still gotta have them as contenders just because of like they play the same and it's like they're gonna do they're gonna play how they're gonna play and it's gonna either work or it's not. They don't change really anything up. They just play their game. And then yeah, that's how they usually end up at the 500 mark almost every year. So they'll be in the picture, but I don't see it happening. But those are like the five contenders. My pretenders are like the people that like are kind of in the playoff picture, but not really. I think the Packers, I just don't think they're doing it offensively right now. I don't think they're gonna be able to string wins together. I mean, they only beat the Rams, who had a QB that couldn't really throw the ball by
Rookie
17, and
QB.
it wasn't a convincing 17 either. Like it was like, yeah, maybe it looks like you
They
should
kind
have
of
won by,
piled it on. Yeah, they kind of
yeah,
piled it on at the end there. That's where 10 of the points came from.
yeah. The Rams. I was looking at their schedule, like they have the team to do it, but I was looking at their schedule, and they have a very tough schedule coming up, and they're already at 6 losses. And to sneak in the wild card, you could probably lose two of those games at max. And I don't really see that happening, especially with Stafford's thumb, and who knows how that is. Bears and Giants, obviously, I think it's pretty obvious they're out. And then the last team that I don't think is going to make it is the Buccaneers. I don't think they're really in contention anymore. They've played close games, but they've suffered losses, especially NFC. I mean, they are sitting at 3-5, so you could probably lose like three more games. But they play the 49ers, they play the Jaguars, and those are two games that they're probably going to lose. So that means they can lose one of the next however many they got left, and I just don't see that happening. And if they get to 9-8 or 10-7, it's just a bunch of tiebreakers, really. Because I mean, they did beat the Vikings, which they would probably get over them, but they lost to the Falcons, who would get over them if they were tied. So I mean, they the way like I could see them getting to 9-8, but I don't see them in contention because of like the tiebreakers and stuff. I just don't really think it's possible for the Buccaneers to make the playoffs at this point, unless if Baker decides to start throwing for 500 yards a game.
Yeah. Yeah, I think I mostly agree with that. I think that the NFC South is tough because it kind of does come down to that battle between the Falcons and the Bucks for that wild card spot. I think going forward, I don't really know who I would bet on because they both have pretty weak schedules, but
Yeah,
I think I actually may give it to the Bucks because the Falcons have their two divisional games against the Saints, and the Saints have a pretty lauded history of beating the Falcons within that
yeah.
rivalry, and I
Me
would
sitting here talking about it, I really should have the Buccaneers in the contenders still, but I
I just, yeah, I think
there's
that
a
that's
chance,
hard.
but I mean, it's either gonna be if two NFC South teams make it, which I don't really see happening, it would there's it would either be the Falcons or the Buccaneers. It wouldn't be both. Like three teams from the NFC South are not making
That's not
the
happening.
playoffs. So
Mm-mm. No, I think the Seahawks are done, even at 5-3. Like just because, and this may be a hot take, but Gino has not played in any way as good as he did last season. And I was exposed. Granted, against the Browns, we have a pretty stellar defense, but he wasn't producing anything past that first quarter, and then was able to maybe create a drive in that on that last drive that eventually ended up winning the game. But going forward, they have some pretty intense matchups. I mean, I've been talking up the Rams for a long time, but I'm not gonna. If you let the Packers score that many points on you, like
I
even
mean,
with
they
the
couldn't
rookie
really help
quarterback,
it though. Their offense could barely move the
barely
ball.
stay on the
So
field. Yeah, maybe I'm being too harsh on them, but
I
they
think
still
if
have to.
Stafford was playing, they would have won that game.
I'm looking at the Seahawks schedule right now, and it just gets worse and worse for them. So they play the Commanders, which is like not a great defense, but they find a way to. It's possible they could find a way to win that game. The Commanders just do. Rams, Niners, Cowboys, Niners again, Eagles, Titans, Steelers, and then you have a game with as the Cardinals,
Yeah,
and it may not even be important at that point.
they have a very tough schedule, but the some sitting at 5-3. You can't put them at pretenders because I mean they would have to lose a lot of games, and
I think they will lose like two
I can
thirds of the games I just listed.
yeah I can I'm just saying I can see it happening, but they have to lose a lot of games to move them out of the race. So like
That's
sitting where they
true.
are now, you just can't put them at pretenders for now.
But who have they beat? They're pretenders. I'm saying it. They're
Okay.
pretenders. The only team that they have beat is actually really good, and they did this in overtime were the Lions. Their
I
other
mean,
wins come
they
from
still
the Seahawks.
they
The
are the
Seahawks.
Seahawks.
Sorry, they beat the Giants, and they beat the Browns, which they had a rookie quarterback in, or not a rookie, sorry, a inept quarterback in, and the Cardinals. Like
Yeah. I
I
mean,
don't see this team going far,
you don't see them winning 4 out of these games. So I think they can beat the Rams.
but they don't make it in with four. I don't think.
At 9-8, you don't think they'd make it in?
No, I think it's going the well.
Because they still have the Cardinals,
I think
Rams.
it. So it's going to be three team. It's the division winners and then three
Yeah.
spots. So I think
There's
it's the Cowboys. I think it's the Cowboys. I think it could be the Vikings, and I think it may be the Bucks.
I think
Like
I get what you're saying about the Seahawks team, but I mean they do have a decent defense as well. So like um they're in contention for
sure, right
playoffs.
now
That's
they
what I'm
are.
saying. They're contenders of the wild card. They're not contenders of winning the whole thing. They're contenders of making a wild card.
Sure, but
That's what
they're not going to. Is what I'm saying. Like
okay,
like
but
that.
what if they start stringing wins together, this is gonna look real bad in a couple weeks. They're gonna be
That
sitting at like 9 and
look,
3.
Here's the thing. If they win these two games, it even then it doesn't get easy. What we could potentially be looking at is a 4-game losing streak. And it's like after these next 2 weeks. You
I
have the
mean, but then
Commanders
they'd
and
be
the
7 and
Rams.
7, which they're still in.
But then you play the Titans and the Steelers. You play the Titans, Steelers, and Cardinals, which
They could win 2 of those 3 games if they
they
really
could,
wanted to.
but that still only puts you at 9.
9-8
Like
has got teams in the playoffs before, so
it
I mean,
has, but I don't know if they can do that. I don't know if they can do that. I think that the Buccaneers can actually make a run. Let me list off. They don't have any like top 10 defense other than one game with the Niners.
who the Buccaneers?
Yeah.
Yeah.
They play the Titans, Niners, Colts, Panthers, Falcons, Packers, Jags, Saints, and Panthers. And the Jags is the only one other team where I see them having and I mean and it's divisional, so they're gonna have other trouble with they do have a lot of divisional matches left, so maybe I'm gassing them up too much, but I don't know, man. I just think the Seahawks, like when you get curb stomp like that to the Ravens, like granted the Ravens are the best team in the league, but 37-3.
Yeah.
That's crazy. Gino threw for 157 yards, and of course he had his turnover. Like,
Yeah, but I mean, we saw the Lions do the same thing, and then they turned around and played better. So I mean, it it's real. It's just really hard to judge it. Say that they're not going to make the playoffs right now. Because I mean, they are sitting in a good spot, and I can see where they lose a bunch of games, but they can also win some too. I mean, they very easily could win a couple of these games, but
okay, well
I,
maybe I am being too harsh on them because they did put up 24 points on the Browns defense, which is a pretty good feat.
yeah, and that's a
Like,
healthy defense. That's not a hurt. It's
but then again, PJ Walker threw 2 interceptions and fumbled. Like
that's not the
and that's all
Seahawks'
PJ
fault though.
Walker.
That's not the Seahawks.
Exactly, but that's not the Seahawks' fault, but it's not necessarily like strength of, but that's not also their strength. That's PJ Walker's inability. Like, that's the thing. It's like PJ Walker essentially, and even then in that game, Gino threw 2 picks.
Yeah, I
Like,
see what you're saying, and that's a
like
converse.
it may
This
be a
is
hot take, but people aren't seeing it like I am.
dog.
I got the
This
vision.
is going to be a story to follow in the next couple
All right,
weeks. We'll
all
see.
right,
Now that, but let's move on to the AFC with your wild card contenders and pretenders.
okay. This may be inflammatory. Um, okay. This was pretty hard.
Yeah.
I do not see anyone coming out of the AFC West other than the Chiefs. I, in terms of the AFC South, I also think it's possible. I think it's possible that the at 6-2, the Jags win the division, and the Texans get a wild card spot. That's what I'm predicting as of right now. So that's one of your wild cards gone. I got 2 left and 2 more divisional winners from the East and the North. I think the Dolphins will win the East. So I think they get in. And then it could be the Browns and the Bengals.
Well, that's four. You said Bills, Browns, Bengals, Texans. There's three
Oh,
wild card
and
spots.
then and then the Ravens win the North.
But that's still four wild card spots. There's only three.
Oh shit. Oh, sorry. You're right. Um I sorry. I think it's not I don't think the Did I say the Bills?
Yeah.
Okay, yeah, I didn't mean to say that. I meant I don't think the Bills I actually don't think the Bills will make it. Because look at this. Look at this crazy schedule going forward. You got the Broncos, which don't
It's
sleep on
probably gonna
them.
be a win, but
Hold on. Probably,
pro
likely. Well, actually, no. Probably is closer than likely. I think it is probably going to be a win. That's what my intuition tells me. But it's also going to be close, in my opinion. Then you play the Jets, Eagles, Chiefs, Bills, Cowboys, Chargers, which Patriots, and the Dolphins.
and they're sitting at
So
5-4, correct?
right,
Yeah. So I mean, could happen. But I mean, for
yeah.
the Texans too. I mean, they play the Bengals this week, which I don't know how great that'll go. And let me pull up their schedule.
I think I would bet on the Texans over the Bills. And I don't think that
Texans
that's too
play,
crazy. I don't think I'm crazy to say that.
but here's the Texans schedule. They play Bengals, Cardinals, which is winnable, Jaguars,
Winnable,
Broncos,
winnable.
Jets, Titans, Browns, Titans, Colts. So I
I
mean,
think you split with the Titans. I think you lose to the Browns, and I think you win out your
and
last
they're
2.
already at 4-4. So you think they beat the Bengals?
I think it's close. I don't think they'll beat the Bengals.
Okay, because you said they won the rest. I was like, "Oh, okay,
No, no, no.
that's
I meant after the Browns. I think they
okay.
win the rest after the Browns.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
I mean, 4-4 is a tough spot. It, it could happen,
So
but
is
I
five
do.
and four.
Yeah, No, the Texans are 4-4.
Right, but the Bills are 5-4,
Yeah,
which is why I'm saying.
I do agree that it's gonna be the four leaders: Browns, Bengals, and then one other team. I think it comes down to Bills, Texans, and Chargers. I know you said you don't really see the Chargers, but I can see them sneak. They're gonna be in the picture. I don't know if they'll like really have a shot, but they'll be in the picture. Then am I? I don't think I'm missing anyone else.
No, that's it.
Yeah,
Yeah, I think I accidentally said the Bills earlier because I had that was the inflammatory point I was gonna bring up. I don't think they make it.
yeah. Yeah. I mean, you never know, but like we said, CJ Stroud does have to stay healthy and everything. He's never really had an injury problem, but like obviously injuries are a part of this sport, and we've been seeing it a lot lately. So like we gotta just like watch out for for injuries these next couple weeks. And I think we should reevaluate this in a couple weeks to see how
Hmm.
this
Yeah, I,
changes.
I will formally apologize to the Seahawks if I'm wrong.
Yeah.
I'm not apologizing to the Bills. I'm not, I will apologize. I will apologize to the Seahawks if I'm wrong. I don't want Gino to come out in here and say Zach Forsythe wrote me off, but I didn't write back. I
Yeah.
will apologize. I will,
But
and then let's just throw in. Sorry, what were you saying?
no, go ahead.
I was just saying let's just go in here and say who we think we can write off, like who we think are just dead in the water. Like I think I think the Patriots in the AFC are dead,
Yes.
but I think that that's really the only one that you can say is
Oh yeah, I mean we could
actually
see the Jets run the table as just because of their defense. I mean, they're it could happen. It's not likely, but it could. That could be something to watch as well. Like I said, I think we really should come back in 3 or 4 weeks and reevaluate this because I mean, it's gonna be a topic when we get closer, and we're gonna see more teams eliminated and everything. So week 18 could be very interesting this year. That's all I'm gonna say.
I hope it is because we're supposed to go to that game.
Yeah,
the
week eight,
The Browns Bengals game in
week
Jungle.
18 could be very interesting.
Yeah. All right.
But let's talk some ball now. Let's
Yeah.
move on to our predictions for the week. And we
Okay.
got this elite prime time matchup on Thursday night. Two young
Who do they think we
QBs.
are?
Two young QBs, Bryce Young versus Tyson Bagent.
I think Fields may be back.
Okay, but
I think he may be back, but
I
even
don't
then,
really think it
yeah,
makes a difference.
yeah, no, no.
Yeah, it's this our prime time slots are not that great this week, but I'll start us off with Panthers Bears. I actually think the Panthers will win. That, but I don't. I'm thinking like that Fields isn't going to play. That's my. I could be wrong, and he could play, but I think the Panthers. As long as Bryce Young doesn't throw 300 pick sixes this week, I think the Panthers can win. Because I mean, the Bears did just get Montez Sweat, but I mean, this especially if Bagent plays, he's just been making too many. He's been throwing too many picks and
Yeah, the
like
turnovers
fumbles and
aren't
everything.
good.
Turnovers has been crazy on that offensive end. So I think Panthers win this one. I don't. I think there's no way this game's a blowout though. This is gonna be like a just close, ugly matchup.
Yeah, I think I also will take the Panthers on this one. I think this is a game that the Panthers are going to seek to redefine who they are as it relates to like I say that a lot. I think the Panthers are going to redefine how they play on the road. They play great in Charlotte, at least their defense does, but everything outside of that is a concern. Um, but I think when you play the Bears at home in prime time, this is just a good opportunity for not a leap to take place because I don't think this is where they write the course of their season by at all. But I think that with just the state that the Bears are in and with their defense kind of crapping the bed, especially as we've kind of shifted into midseason form. Give me the Panthers in this one. I think Bryce Young will have a good game.
Yeah,
Um, that leads us to a international game
which still is
against
not that good.
No, which is a shame because the Dolphins Chiefs game was awesome.
Yeah, that
Um,
was very. It. I thought it'd be more high scoring, but like it was very still entertaining to watch.
yeah, I feel bad for the people of Germany though. Like that's they got a great game, and then like imagine you were like on a work trip or something. You're like, oh, I'm so excited to finally see the NFL, and then you got to watch Colts Patriots.
Yeah.
Um, I actually do think that the Patriots will win this though against the Colts. Mac Jones has not been good over the course of the season, just over like at large. But this most recent game where he played against the Commanders was actually not his fault. That wasn't necessarily the reason why they would lost. They lost. Um, I do think that the Patriots do win though. When you have a offense that really hasn't been able to put up very many points. Actually, not that they've actually put up a decent amount of points in every game they've played. They're like the only team to put over 20 in every single game they've played. Uh, I just don't think that they're going to be able to overcome the Patriots defense, which still has been pretty decent. I mean, you were able to hold the Bills to a loss. So I don't know why I feel this way, but I feel like the Patriots will actually find a way to win. Ramondre Stevenson was kind of heating up in this most recent game against the Commanders. Uh, and I think that if you start to kind of identify the aspects of your offense that are working and hone in on that, the Patriots will be able to get a couple wins out of the season. This isn't they're still going to be in the sweepstakes for Caleb Williams as it goes on, but um I think with Kendrick Bourne out with that torn ACL, they may rely more on trying to get people on the ground involved, and I think that that doesn't bode well for the Colts. So give me the Patriots in this one.
Yeah, I actually have the Colts, but that's solely because they have a great running game
Yeah,
with
Taylor has been heating up as well.
Taylor, and I mean Zach Moss. He hasn't been getting a lot of production recently, but he's proved that he can run the rock as well. And they've done it against some top defenses. They did it against the Browns, and they've done it against a couple other defenses. And I think they would do it against this Patriots team. With this offense has not been consistent all year, so I just don't really think. I think this Colts run game will assert itself like it has been recently, and it'll just be too much for the Patriots to handle. And I see the Colts winning this one. I think it'll be close,
Yeah.
and I think the Patriots actually have the better quarterback in this matchup. It's
You would take
debate.
Gardner Minshew over Mac?
Did I say Colts? I meant Patriots have the better QB matchup. Like I
Oh,
think,
sorry. So yeah. So you would take Mac over Gardner Minshew?
I mean, it's a debate to have.
Yeah, it's close.
It's close, but like this is like it's where the QBs are probably on the same level or same tier. So, and I trust the Colts run game a lot more than the Patriots one, just because I've seen a lot more from the Colts one, and that's why I have the Colts winning. I think it'll be close, but like, will it be the most entertaining game to watch? I'm not sure. So we'll see about that, but I think the Colts win it. Then moving on to AFC North matchup. I'm gonna let you take. This is your team versus the Ravens, the Browns. So I'm gonna let you start this one off and give us your thoughts on it.
I hate these matchups. I really do. I don't they're not fun. Well, actually they are fun, but they're not fun for a Browns fan who has been suffering heart palpitations for over the course of these couple weeks. Um it's at Baltimore, which I'm not happy about. The Ravens find a way to win at Baltimore. Um and normally I would be inclined to say that the Browns and Ravens will split, but this isn't a normal Ravens team, and we probably could have won that game if we didn't have DTR playing. So that may have been the game that we, I guess, should have won. You're at Cleveland. Your offense should have been ripping and roaring it by that point. If that is
Didn't
what,
you just come off the Titans win?
yes,
Yes.
yes, and that was the game where we looked awesome. That was the game where the offense looked great. So it's like that kind of feels like the game that we should have won. And this one doesn't feel like something that the Browns are necessarily prepared for, in that, like with Deshaun, we have no idea what's still going on with Deshaun. Well, we kind of know. We have an idea. He was able to make some pretty great throws in this most recent game against the Cardinals. And that connection with Amari is just translatable between any quarterback, and I'm glad that he's just always open, it seems. So I'm really not happy about this game. But with all that being said, give me the Browns. I'm taking the Browns over
As you're
the
like
Baltimore
doubting your
Ravens.
own team.
Yeah. Give me the Browns over the Ravens. I actually think that Lamar Jackson has not played against a defense that will be able to perform in the way that the Browns have. And you're saying, Zach, you have actually played the Browns. This is different. This is different because we are actually will have an offense that will be able to move the ball down the field in some way. DTR really couldn't do anything. In that game, he threw for 121 yards. He was 19 for 36 and threw 3 interceptions. I don't think Deshaun Watson is going to do that. I think he will be better. I think that the Browns defense has actually settled in, and this is going to be a really hard defensive matchup for Lamar. And I hope if the Browns have been paying attention to any of the analytics, which I think Kevin Stefanski does, they will see that Jerome Ford cannot run the ball very well, at least yet. So they should lean on Kareem Hunt if they can, and if they're able to do that, then I think that that the Browns will at least have a couple of shots, and I think that they'll be able to do it. I also think that with the cornerback room that we have, they're going to be able to help punish and really shut down Mark Andrews, uh, and potentially Zay Flowers. He's really, really fast. But I think that that's where the Ravens are going to be able to, or not going to be able to, but they will struggle against the Browns. Um, the the one thing that you can't account for, though, is just Lamar Jackson being the magical being and the amazing football player that he is. So if that happens, then throw everything I said out of the window. But I actually am going to take the Browns.
See, I agree with mostly what you said. That's why I'm taking the Ravens because you were very skeptical. You're very skeptical about this game, but I do think the Ravens won't move the ball as easily. And yes, I think the Browns will be able to put up more points. But at the end of the day, Deshaun Watson still isn't 100. I mean, he could be 100%. I'm not really sure, but based on your
He's not,
he's yeah, he it doesn't really look
but
like it.
he did get better. And that's why I think that it was important that he played this Cardinals game. He did get better as the game progressed. Granted,
Yeah.
the Cardinals also got worse
Yeah.
over the course
That's
of the
not
game.
really the best like judgment game against the Cardinals. But
No,
I think I think the Ravens will win this one. I think it'll be closer, but I could see the uh Ravens winning this by like in any between 10 or 17 points. I think it's more like closer to 10, but I mean you never
yeah.
know.
If they win, I think it'll be by 10. But that's not gonna happen.
Okay.
It very possibly could happen. Packers Steelers. Interesting game. And what I'm betting on is a Jordan Love masterclass again. I'm joking. No, this is not going to happen. The Steelers are not going to. The Packers are not going to beat the Steelers. I'm
Yeah.
sorry. They are coming off a really ugly win against the Rams, um, which was away. They're away again, in Pittsburgh, which is a very unfriendly environment.
They played
And
at Green Bay this last week
oh, they did. Oh, okay.
and
Well,
still looked bad.
whoops. Yeah. Well, add 1 point for me too with that one. They looked bad at home. Although this isn't a back-to-back away week, which is like which would be bad. I think that the Steelers are still they're able to create an environment where the Green Bay's not going to be able to move the ball really at all. I think that their defense is going to look really good during this game, which is indicative of what they really are. They are good, but they're not in that top category anymore. They're not. I wouldn't say they're fighting for that spot with the Browns, the Ravens, and the Cowboys anymore. I think that you could make a contention that they're starting to break down, especially with Minka Fitzpatrick being out um in last week's game. Or sorry, uh yeah, was he was out last week's game?
Who was?
Minka Fitzpatrick? I think he
I
was.
don't know, but I
Yeah.
mean, regardless, he does have like a full week and a half to recover.
I don't know the level of severity that it is. Obviously, since we're not fully aware of where he's at. It's not like season ending or anything like that. But I still think the Steelers defense really hasn't been able to hold the test of time. Um, even with that being said, just give me the Steelers because the Packers can't do anything.
Yeah, this Packers team, like we mentioned, they struggled against a Rams team that couldn't move the ball. I mean, I think the QB was like 1 for 2 until like halftime, almost. So and they still barely won. All their points came at the end of the game, and they can't afford to do that against the Steelers, and who have a great defense. And the Steelers' offense is good enough to put points on the board to where they can. I think they're gonna win this game in a dominant fashion, but I don't think they'll like win by like 28 points or something. They'll probably win by like anywhere from like 14 to 21, but like it wouldn't be close the whole game. But I don't think the Steelers have much of a problem with this game, which is like kind of annoying to see for I think for both of us as Bengals and Browns fans. But uh, the Steelers are just gonna find a way to keep winning. And Mike Tomlin, as you know, he doesn't do losing seasons, so he has to get to 9 wins somehow. So I mean, this will put him at 6. So I
I just
think
want to let the Packers know though that they do have the permission to win.
yeah,
Like
you can win.
you can do it. Like
We
you
believe,
should. Yeah, you
as you
should
can
do
tell,
that.
we believe.
Yeah. I like you guys can do it. You should totally do that. Just to let you know.
Talking to you,
Um,
Andy and Jake.
yeah, you guys, go help out your team. Strap up. They need it. All right,
But
Braden, take us over to the Niners Jags.
this game could has possibility of being great because I mean both teams had a bye, so they or did the Jaguars have a bye? They had a bye, right?
Yes, they did.
Yes, yeah. So they both had 2 weeks to prepare for this game. Uh, and these are Jags who have been on a roll, and then because the Jags, if I'm remembering correctly, they did start 1-2, right?
Yeah, they struggled early in the season. They initially won their game to the Falcon. Sorry,
With the Colts, and then
they won their game to the Colts,
lost
lost
to
to the Chiefs,
Chiefs.
lost to Texans, and then
Yeah,
they were able to get back against the
yeah,
Falcons.
yeah. So they're on a five game winning streak, and the 49ers, as we know, are on a 3 game losing streak. But I think the key for the 49ers is that everyone has had time to get healthy. Everyone, Brock Purdy and his concussion, it looked like back-to-back games almost. The Bengals game, we're not really sure if he ever got one, but everyone's getting healthy, and I think the 49ers start to look at like they did when they were 5-0, and I think the 49ers win this game. But I think it's going to be very close, very competitive game, almost like the Dolphins Chiefs, where it's just going to be very high level football, and it's going to come down to who win in the clutch.
Yeah, I also agree. I think that this is like if the San Francisco 49ers were an airplane starting with the Browns in like the real physical loss that they had, it's like your airplane just catches on fire. Then next week you lose a wing, and then as you get more injured and injured and injured, that Bengals game you're like falling out of the sky. And I think that this bye and just the time that they've been able to have to get their guys uh healed up and kind of get Debo back in the game because we've seen how important he is. The plane is it has stopped falling. The fire's put out. There the the air the flight attendants are handing out the snacks to all the people on the plane. Like I think the 49er season is back to regular business, and I think that it, the only way that you could actually reassert your dominance as the Niners is in a game like this is win it close. Because you're not going to win, you're not going to beat this team by 20 plus points. So I think that it will be close, but I think the Niners do find a way to win it, especially with Debo saying he's as healthy as he can be. I think that this is just hopefully this is a good opportunity for Purdy to put up to get on tape some good throws and kind of prevent himself from falling back into those mistakes that he's been making recently. All right, Saints Vikings, which could be an interesting game. I mean, you're kind of having you're looking at 2 5-4 teams, really, really going to be fighting for that spot in their division. Saints looking to hold, Minnesota looking to kind of take the jump. I don't know if they'll be able to catch the Lions, but this would be a good start against the Saints. You've kind of started to see the offense click, except for Derek Carr, which is kind of the most important guy. Uh, as a but when you look at the Vikings, you actually have a offense that is real beat up, but you actually do have a quarterback who is kind of taking the show and carrying it all on his back. So it's kind of who you prefer to. It's kind of like a pick 'em, I'd say, for this game. Um, I think it actually will be the Vikings, though. I think the Vikings will win, even with kind of a beat up defense. They're going to be at home. I think this gives them an opportunity to ride high on the Dobbs morale, and I think when you have a circumstance in a win like that, I think they actually may be riding high, and when you have a matchup as close as this, at least in my opinion, being at home, having that advantage, and then also just being able to make that change in quarterback and uplift the team, uh, I think that the Vikings will win this.
Yeah, the question about this game is because we saw glimpses of Josh Jobs in Arizona, then we saw him turn the ball over a bunch. They like this has been the motto for the Vikings all year, and it's very basic, and it's literally what it's come down to. Almost every loss, they gotta hold on to the ball. They can't be turning it over. Because I mean, they had a safety. They had I'm pretty sure they had a couple fumbles in the Vikings game as well. So, or the Falcons game, sorry. Um, but yeah, I actually have the Saints winning just because I mean these last 2 weeks they've looked pretty good. Against the Colts, they looked really good, and then they played the Bears.
Bears.
The offense at the end, because the defense turned them over like 4 drives in a row in their own territory, and somehow they didn't score a single point at the end of the game. But I think the Saints they can win this game. Their offense needs to pick it up, and their kicking situation needs to get a little better as well. Um, but I think the Saints win this one just because I don't know how Josh Dobbs, although he did play good last week, I don't know how consistent he's going to be yet. But he very easily could be because he has a lot more weapons on this team than he did in Arizona.
Yeah, that's a valid concern. I do think though that here's a fun statistic: the Saints have not won a game against a team with a winning record, and that's bound to come. Like I think they will win one, but and this doesn't really sway me very much. But I think that that provides a little bit more context as to why I
Yeah.
think the Vikings will win. All right, Braden. Texans Bengals, which could be a fun game. I will be watching this for sure. It'll be on the small screen in my house.
Yeah. Uh, Bengals have looked really good. I don't know if you're gonna want to admit it, but
No, I agree. I agree.
we have we did this last year where we were 1-2. This year we were 1-3. We came back, and now we're on a roll again, and we're gonna see how far this can take us. I think the Bengals win this game because I trust the Bengals secondary. They got uh a, they got 3 young guys, especially Taylor Britt and Dax Hill, and they also got the rookie DJ Turner. 2 of those are Michigan guys. But we also got Awuzie. I'm blanking on the other one right now, but our defense, our secondary is good at least, and our linebackers is. I think the Bengals have one of the best middle linebacker duo like in football. Just middle linebackers because we got Jermaine Pratt and Logan Wilson, and those are both ball hawk linebackers. They sit in the middle of the field and people try to throw over them and it just doesn't happen. But and then obviously our offense has been feeling it lately. We've seen Joe Mixon get involved. We've seen Jamar Chase, and we saw T. Higgins last week get involved as well. And we're moving the ball and everything. Everything's coming together, and I think the Bengals win this one. And this is either gonna be like a close game, kind of like the Bills one, or this could be very similar to the Falcons Bengals game last year, where Bengals jumped out to like it was either a 14-0 or 21-0 lead, and then the Falcons offense brought them back into the game a little bit, and then the Bengals just ended up like outscoring them by a bunch of points. Like, and I could see that happening to where the Bengals gets a couple stops, but CJ Stroud still continues, and then the Texans not really being able to stop the Bengals. But I think the Bengals win this one by at least 10 points, I think.
Um, I agree. I think the Bengals will win. I don't think this by that much though. I just I want to ask you this question. How many interceptions do you think CJ Stroud will throw during this game?
It won't be if he does throw one, it won't be more than one. I don't think he'll.
I also agree.
I think
I
he
think
could throw one because this is a secondary where he could, but I don't see him having like a 3-4 interception game.
I don't think so either. And I think he'll be good. I think like this will be a great offensive game by CJ, even despite your defense being solid. Being able to shut down
I
some
think
pretty
they deserve more recognition than they get.
yeah, it's one of the
But I'm
better
also a
better
Bengals
Bengals
fan, so
defense. But I just think that the one thing that I'm concerned about on the and you guys are back. You guys, Burrow's playing like he normally is. You, Joe Mixon was able to get a touchdown. Um, and then Jamar Chase and T. Higgins getting involved is nice. Um, like I said earlier, the corner room or like like the DB room and for the Texans wasn't really holding up against Mike Evans, and that's really only one super competent receiver in that in Tampa. I mean, you have Chris Godwin, who's no slouch either, but I would easily take T. Higgins and Jamar Chase over Evans and Godwin. I don't trust the Texans DBs to be able to make those plays. One considerable issue is uh Jamar Chase. He is suffering some back
yeah,
soreness.
I was about to say that his back may not be the healthiest. He may not
Yeah,
even play. I'm not really sure.
yeah. If he doesn't play, I think that this game does actually become a situation where it could be a toss up. Uh, not because I doubt Burrow or I doubt T or anything like that. Tyler Boyd and T Higgins are still incredibly decent, but without that star factor of Chase, it is something that could noticeably degrade the offense. Um, at that point, I would throw it into a toss up, but with Chase, I think that it is a 7+ point win.
Yeah.
Yeah.
This game could go so many ways. There's so many outcomes that could, but I think most people have the Bengals on top of this one.
Yeah. All right. Titans Bucks. Which I feel like looking at these games, like most of these are pretty decent. Apologizing for that really awful prime time. Like that Chargers Jets game was miserable, man. That was not fun at all. Other than that that punt return touchdown by the rookie. Anyway, Titans Bucks. I have to say Bucks, right? I have to push this agenda. Uh,
Yeah, you have to.
yeah. So Um, yeah, give me the Bucks with Will Levis coming on. I mean, he still had he had a pretty decent game against the Steelers. I was really depressed after that loss. To the Titans, and I want him to do well. I mean, he had a pretty decent game, 22 for 39, threw for 262 yards and one interception, really in like garbage time on the well, not garbage time per se, but like in the clutch moment against a incredibly competent, but I would say not elite Steelers defense. Um, he was able to keep them close, and I don't think that you would have been able to do that with Ryan Tannehill. I do think that Baker um is better right now, and I think that they maybe have they definitely have more weapons. I didn't touch on this before, but Rashad White actually did look really good during the Texans game, and he was one of the more productive weapons in their offense. So I think that you can lean on Rashad White a little bit more, not only as a receiving threat, but his rushing actually looked nice as well. So actually, I will take the Buccaneers, and I will stay true to what I predicted earlier. Uh, at home against a team that has shown signs of improvement, but I think the Titans will be done once you move to 3-6. I don't think I see them overcoming from it. I do think that this is a situation where if the Bucks do lose this game though, it not that they're done necessarily, but like that's going to be a real big loss for their culture and their like perspective going through the season.
Yeah, Will Levis, I know that interception was like in the clutch, but like he had to kind of like force it. There wasn't really
Yeah,
much
yeah. I
time
don't
left.
blame him for that.
And he was making throws that no other QB on that roster would make, which is a positive sign. But this is at home in Tampa Bay, and we said before their defense is very underrated, the Buccaneers was, and I think you can say the same for the Titans, but I think the Buccaneers one's better. And Baker he's only thrown 4 interceptions all year as well. So like he hasn't really been turning the ball over, and I don't see that happening here. I think this is going to be a very close competitive game, but I'm picking the game manager veteran. Uh
In that of Baker.
yeah, but I think the Buccaneers won this one. I don't I do think it will be close, so I don't think this will be a blowout at all or anything.
Wait, you're picking the game manager veteran?
Yeah, I'm picking Buccaneers.
Oh, I thought you said the Titan. Okay, I see.
Did
I
I,
see.
oh, I probably messed that up, but because I kind of froze up in my own thoughts.
No.
But I'm picking the Buccaneers because I think Baker has is the veteran and he's game managers. They're not that flashy, but they don't. Most of them tend not to make mistakes. Is the big thing. Like they'll continue to take these 3 yard checkdowns over and over again. They're not going to force a deep ball. And we can see if we haven't seen it yet, but we could maybe see the inexperience of Will Levis trying to force stuff, especially against this Buccaneers defense, which other in these last 2 games, he's gone against some pretty good defenses to start off his uh quarterback campaign. But I think the Buccaneers just win a close one just because I think Will Levis is more likely to make mistakes than Baker.
I agree.
Uh,
All right, Lions Chargers. What do you think?
I think this is going to be a very high scoring game, and I since I'm also a Michigan fan, so some of the accounts on social media also cover the Lions, and they've been like freaking out because like Tony Romo like is calling the game this or Tony Romo and Jim Nantz is calling the game like this is like a big deal for Lions fans because like this is a very like this is probably one of the best games of the week. Like this is comparable to Titan or Texans Bengals where it could be very high scoring, very like entertaining to watch. But I trust the coach, the defense of the Lions more than I trust the Chargers because I have a lot of respect for Dan Campbell. I think he is a great coach, and I think they've developed Jared Goff and everyone on this offense really well. And I think they win a shootout in LA.
I also think the Lions will win, but I do not have any faith in the Chargers. They looked miserable against the Jets. I know the Jets have a solid defense, and that's really what keeps them in these games, but like they just didn't look good. Like I was like depressed watching them as a Justin Herbert fan. Like I genuinely do not have the faith in Brandon Staley that he can go against like a veritable team like this. And I think that the Lions will actually win by probably around 10 plus points against this Chargers team. It's not that I think that every player on the Chargers are bums by any means. Like Keenan Allen is great, and he's able, and that connection between Justin Herbert and him really has just been getting better and better. Um, but I think this is a game that the Lions do win quite convincingly. I do see though, like the rationale behind thinking it could be a shootout though. I just don't
Because I
have
mean,
any
at the end
faith.
of the day, the Chargers still do have a high-powered offense, and we've seen them. We've seen them against the Jets, the Chiefs. Have they played any other really good defenses? I can't think off the top of my head. I mean, they've played
They
a
played the
couple.
Cowboys.
Yeah, and they've moved the ball on them as
Yeah, they
like, and
kept
they
the Cowboys one close.
yeah. So and it's in LA too, which can be a factor. So that's why I think it's going to be a closer game. But I can also see the Lions just steamrolling them as well.
It's just
R-
they're inconsistent because they keep their games close. Like they lost to the Dolphins and then they lost to the Titans. Like how do you
Yeah.
lose to the Titans and then you kept it close against the Vikings, but they still lost that. They ended up finally beating the Raiders,
Well, no, they
and
beat the
then
Vikings,
oh sorry, they did beat the Vikings, and then they finally beat the
but
Raiders.
they tried every way to lose that game
Yeah, and it's
in
just
Minnesota. So like, it's coaching. That's really what's come down to. I mean, you pointed out earlier that this could be.
I think Dan Campbell is the far superior
Yeah.
coach, and I think that's really just what's going to show. On paper, these teams should both be incredible high flying offenses,
Yes.
especially with Eckler. Like Eckler is back and he great receiving option as well, but like I just don't see it. They look lethargic for the Chargers. Falcons Cardinals, in which could be the Kyler Murray debut. Uh
It is. He got elevated to the
yeah,
53-man roster today.
yeah. Yeah, so Kyler Murray is playing, which is very exciting. I I'm actually pretty happy about this. Just because it's good for the game. It's fun to see Kyler play. It's always fun to see a rushing and really quick quarterback. Um, and even with that, I think the Falcons will still win. I think that getting him on his first game back, not that he's going to be terrible at all or any by any means, but like I think that it is going to have some getting used to. This Falcons defense is legit, and Heineke is clearly the upgrade as opposed to Desmond Ritter. I mean, I'm really glad that they made that move. My, if they do lose though, it's going to be because of the run, in my opinion, if the Falcons lose, because they just don't use Bijan Robinson. I don't get it. There was a comment recently that Arthur Smith or someone said that Bijan was doing well away from the ball. Like I just do not understand. And he, I think that Arthur Smith is also someone that we should consider as potentially being on the hot seat because like I get it that he like is anti-fantasy and he just like has a vendetta against fantasy as a whole, but at a point you have to stop being stupid with like no, I'm not calling Arthur Smith a stupid individual or anything like that, but you just like you got to see past you got to stop doing this to yourself and not using your good options. He made the correct move with getting rid of Ritter, or at least like elevating Heineke to the starting spot. But man, you gotta lean on Bijan, man. That you can't
They
draft him that
drafted
high and
him
not
so
use him.
high
Yeah,
for them not to.
which is kind of what we were saying with Jameer. on Jahmyr Gibbs and the Lions, and he looked pretty great as well.
Yeah, I
And
think it was more they weren't trying to give him the a hefty workload. They're trying to like develop him and like have him
yeah,
learn like slowly enter him, which I think was the right way to approach it, especially since they had Monty, who was playing really well before he got hurt.
yeah, Monty kind of made it easy to not play him, and it like, and then when you did have him get injured, that was kind of the natural progression.
Yeah, and the only people that were mad were the fantasy owners because they drafted him so high.
Yeah,
So that's not really like something you can compare like or like judge
I'm
him
not
based on.
saying the situation is similar. Like, I'm not
Yeah,
saying that they both made the same mistake per se, but the reality of the situation is, even with Tyler Algier being good, like Tyler Algier is a good running back. I think that you have to play Bijan,
yeah.
like
You
especially with the situation that you're in, because the Lions weren't in the situation the Falcons were in, where they're like hovering around 500. Like, they're
yeah
6-2 right now, and the Falcons are 4-5, and those are completely different situations.
yeah. Um, yeah, I mean, I agree with it. I also think the Falcons will win just because I think they have the better overall team. We've seen this Cardinals team really struggle these past couple weeks with Josh Jobs, with Clayton Tune, who looked awful, by the
That
way.
was miserable. He
I
was
don't
like a
know
sacrificial
what
lamb.
I don't. Yeah,
I don't.
I don't know what they
I,
were thinking. Like, oh
yeah,
yeah, let's have this guy over Dobbs. That I don't know what they were thinking with that. I think they were just ready for Kyler to come back, but
yeah.
we'll see. We'll see how he does. I think it's gonna take him a second, kind of like with Deshaun last year, who it took him a minute, and he never really got settled in last year because he didn't have that many games. And but I think it's gonna take Kyler a second, and I don't. I'm more confident in the Falcons because I mean Tyler Heineke again is a game manager. That's all he is, and that's all the Falcons really need to win some of these games. So yeah, this Falcons team is gonna be very interesting to watch.
Do we even have to talk about this next game?
I mean, we can just Cowboys versus Giants. I think we both got Cowboys by a million.
The Tommy
Cause
DeVito show.
yeah, cause Daniel Jones is now with the torn ACL. Tyrod Taylor's on IR. Waller's on AR. They're just gonna
Oh my
feed
gosh.
Barkley like 100,000 times. Every play is gonna be a run play, and then Barkley's gonna get injured, and then they're really not gonna know what to do.
I genuinely don't know what you do if the Giants, if Barkley gets injured.
I think you should just forfeit all the games for the rest of this year and not have this embarrassment. I mean, this is
I think if I was Brian Dable, I might actually like blow a fuse. Like, I think there would
yeah.
just be a part of
I
me that just
because
broke in my head.
I do feel bad for him because he is a good coach. He's just in a terrible situation right now,
And I don't know what the decision was to give Daniel Jones all that money. I don't know how
and it's
much
looking
involved
like
he
that
was
wasn't
involved in
really
the.
his decision to make.
He
Because
is
I
a
mean,
lot. Yeah, he's really irritated with. He was really irritated with Jones when he was playing,
yeah.
and it's
So
like, I don't know,
I don't
man.
know if he was the biggest fan of the 160 mil, and I don't think a lot of people were either. But I think we both have Cowboys in this one. I
Yeah,
think
by
that's
like
all.
40, by like 35 points.
Yeah, I think we can move on
Yeah.
to Commanders Seahawks, and this is a team. I think you had. We know who Zach's gonna pick based on how he reacted earlier, but I think this can be a close game. I mentioned the Commanders; they're gonna play the same every week, and it's either gonna work or it's not, and it really depends on the team. And I think the Seahawks will be able to stop it, and they're gonna be able to win because the Commanders are a little more pass heavy, and they got like a real. The Seahawks have a good secondary. They got Witherspoon, they got Woolen, and then they got Jamal Adams back there, and they got a bunch of other pieces. And I think as long as Gino doesn't, he needs to play better with controlling his turnovers because he's had a lot of bad turnovers these past couple weeks, and he needs to minimize that. And I think this could be a good start for him if he doesn't throw that many interceptions this week. I got the Seahawks winning a close one. It's in Seattle. That's another factor as well.
I actually do think the Seahawks win this one. I think this is the one that they win. This is one that they win. Um, their schedule permits, like, look, let me read it off again.
Yeah,
Just let me read it off again just to make it clear why I believe that this will happen. After you play the Rams, are also not easy, which is you play the Niners, the Cowboys, the Niners again, the Eagles, the Titans, and then the Steelers. Those six, I think you could all lose. Like that is a possibility, especially if the Steelers are looking for if the Steelers are still in contention by that point. Um, Now if you kind of get to the end of the season and the Steelers they kind of like they kind of fall down. One more win, like that would put you at, like, let's say they lost all six of those. That would be pretty disastrous. That would put you at, so they're at 5-4 right now. If they win this and then they win against the Rams, that puts you at 7-4, 7-5, 7-6, 7-7, 7-8, 7-9, 7-10. And that would put you at 8-10. That does not get you in the playoffs. If you win, wait, that's not right. 7. Anyway, I just think that they have the potential to lose all those games, and you need to find a win in there, and it would be really, really tough, especially with all those teams fighting for the spot that they're going to hold at the top of the division. So I think that the path is there for them to potentially win both of these weeks and still not make it into the playoffs. We have talked about before how the Commanders' DB room is really crappy. And then with DK Metcalf, with the physicality that it plays, and just the ability for Tyler Lockett to always be open, I think both of
and
them have a pretty big game.
JSN has
So
been
yeah.
playing pretty decent as well. So
JSN has been weird because I believe in JSN and I know how good of a receiver he is, but like, not only have they're like we recognize that he was a slot receiver, but they're like really using him as a slot receiver. Like,
yeah,
I think both of the touchdowns he's had recently were like just screens or like at the line of scrimmage.
yeah. I
So
mean, I think they're again. It's coming down to the quarterback play where it hasn't been the greatest either. So
yeah,
I think they'll get him involved eventually.
yeah, I agree. But actually, I do have the Seahawks winning this one. Jets Raiders could be really interesting because it seems like the Raiders kind of have their swagger back and are somehow hanging on at 4-5 as compared to the Jets 4-4. It's at Vegas. Um, we keep seeing these weird indications by Rodgers that he could be coming back soon. No one really knows what the truth of that.
I don't think it'll be
How
till like January at the earliest.
he said, "Give me a couple weeks
Yeah, but he
to start this
also
player,"
he
but
came out
yeah,
saying that like he didn't realize how it was being recording and that he wasn't being literally.
right.
So
So
who knows?
who really knows? My my intuition tells me it won't be this season, or sorry, not this season. But definitely not in the next couple of weeks.
He'll only
But
come back if they're in playoff contention.
I mean, which if they win this game, they could be
Yeah,
like they're, but I don't think they do. I don't think they win this game. I think that uh the quarterback play out of Vegas has been just better since they decided to bench Jimmy. The team has their swagger back, and their defense. And Max Crosby, I don't think he's in the running. Well, he is in the running for defensive player of the year, but I don't think he's at the top. He has been really solid though, and I think that they're really going to be able to punish Zach Wilson and throw him off, and he's not going to be able to get anything going. I think that the Raiders do win this one.
yeah. I actually think the Jets won this one, but that's the main reason for that is because Aiden O'Connell is a rookie. Um, they played the Giants last week, which isn't the greatest defense, and the Jets, as we know, have a great, really good secondary And I could see Aiden O'Connell making some easy mistake, like mistakes that wouldn't have happened against the Giants that could happen very easily against the Jets. So that's what worries me in this game because regardless, I think it's gonna be a close game and it's gonna be like low scoring, like maybe like 21 or 24 points wins you this game. And if you can't, if in that close, like that game where that little points can win you the game, you can't make mistakes like that. And I think it very easily could happen to Aiden O'Connell. And I think the Jets win this one based on this is like another game where like Zach Wilson may have like a decent stat line, but it's going to come down to the defense. Sorry.
Yeah, I agree. Well, I agree. I agree that it will come down to that.
Yeah. And then moving on to our prime time Monday game, Bills Broncos. We've mentioned the Bills struggles. Josh Allen hasn't really been that good with the ball lately, but I do think they are better overall than this Broncos team. And we've seen the Broncos defense struggle at times with Miami and everything, and I think the Bills have a very air raid offense similar to Miami, but not as explosive. But I still think the Bills will be able to put up points against this Broncos defense, and I don't think that Russell Wilson and that offense will be able really to put up more than 24. So I think the Bills win this game. I could see it being like 35 or 38-24 or something like that, especially since it's in Buffalo.
I don't know, man. I don't know. I think that there's some turnover potential that could really find Josh Allen out again. I think that the Broncos could find a way to get the run moving. I don't know. I'm very torn. But if this is a Bills, you do have to win this game. Like I think they know that. I think that they want to. I mean, every game is a must win in the NFL. That's the way that we view it with how short the season is. But I think it is the Bills on this one. You're at home. You have the more elite quarterback, the more elite wide receiver room, even though Judy has been performing pretty well recently. Do give me the Bills. Doesn't make me feel any better about their season going forward, though.
And you've already expressed that. But
Yeah.
I mean, we got games, especially on Sunday at 1 and 4 o'clock, that can be very interesting. Primetime
Yeah,
games,
yeah,
they lack a
totally.
little bit, but I mean, they could be close, just may not be the most interesting games. But I mean, we'll see. I mean, we're coming off a very good week of football, so I think we kind of have high expectations. But and next week we got some really good games too. But I mean, yeah, I mean, this could be a good week of football.
I think we're in for more good games. All right, well, I think that's all we have for today. Thank you so much for staying into the end and listening to us ramble on about who we think is legit and who we think are posers. Quick shout out before the end. Shout out to the Columbus Crew currently in the MLS playoffs. They unfortunately lost to Atlanta 4-2 last night. At Atlanta, they're coming home to Columbus to hopefully seal the deal. We'll keep you guys updated on either the misery or resounding success of the Columbus Crew going forward. They're a hometown team and really the only thing to write home about here in Columbus
Yeah.
until we get an NBA team that is, of course. But other than that, hope you guys have a great rest of your day. And thank you again for listening. See you later.
Peace.
Bye.